We want to welcome you to our Tuesday night, September the 18th study session. We ask that you turn off and silence all cell phones. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and at midnight. First item on the agenda, Alliance Against Family Violence update.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I've got two things stapled together, sir.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. I'm Stan Cherry. I'm the Vice President of the Alliance Against Family Violence Board. We've been in existence now since mid-April. That's when we kicked off. We had two members start, Sarah Guston and myself, and then we just kind of added the rest. We had a total of 7 out of 9. We had one application, but 7 is we're doing okay. If that's us, has nothing. We just set that target at 9, but I can report to you all 7 are committed. We like what we're doing and willing to do a little bit of work. I've got one page. It just bulletizes where we've been, what we've done so far. It gives you a little near-term focus of what we're going to do. And I've got a new slide that wasn't in the briefing. It's the 2017 DV domestic violence statistics, and they're increased. It's not really good. So I'll give you.
I can pass those around for you.
Okay. Sure.
Do you need one?
I got one right here.
Okay.
As I said, my daughter had worked at the Alliance, and that's how I came to know that there was such an organization, and went to a couple of the functions they had. Listened to my daughter. She was a safety advocate, and she would get protection orders, and was in the courthouse a lot. We had a police advocate, medical advocate, and a safety advocate. That's some protection orders. So I answered an application at Topeka with the coalition. That's our higher headquarters that looks after all the domestic violence organization in Kansas. We had our first meeting, and I hosted it over at the old Walmart in Cubic Suites, and Sarah Guston was there. We quickly added 3 more folks. Took a little vote, and Sarah is our president, and I'm the vice president. Julie Martinez is a registered nurse, and her field is sexual violence, dealing with that. Melinda Harbor lives in Tonganoxie. We'd sure like to get some more representation from outside. And John Bradford joined the board, so we now have, because I felt kind of lonesome there just to make that. As I said, we started back it was 15th or 16th of April. We're now fully operational. We've had 7 board members now for almost 2 months, so it didn't just happen. So we've been cranking with 7 out of 9. We will accept applications and interview, but right now I'm not aware of. I know somebody, Father McAvoy asked me for an application, not for him, but for someone that came to him about it. So we'll have more. We reached our initial funding goal of $100,000, and why we set $100,000. We figured that about $200,000, and we did this looking at pay periods. What it would cost for a pay period with a staff a full up of 9, and we're not going to have 9 all to start, but full up with 9. Utilities, telephone. What's the 2-week slice of that? And we reckoned that if we had $100,000 and added to another $100,000, we could survive missing a reimbursement for 4 pay periods. And the money that we have in that AAFV pouch below us, that's an insurance policy for us. That's so we don't have to shut the doors like we did this time. The grant money was there, but you can't spend that money unless you've got money in the bank to go ahead and do it. And we want to make sure that we have a decent cushion to fall on. So we've got, our goal was $100,000. We currently have $104,565.76, and So what do? We raised the goal to 200,000, and I didn't check with the board, but I said that when we get 200,000, we're gonna kick it up another 100,000. And I reckon that $350,000 to $400,000 would allow us to do some things inside the shelters that need to be done and make it more, even though the folks are there for a short period of time. It's barracks living, it's bunk beds, you need some lamps in the corner and a plastic fern and something to make it a little bit, and they need to make it better for the children, for sure. It's clean, it's serviceable, but it's not, there's nothing homey about it. So that cushion, and we're gonna work to get that, with fundraising, and I'll talk a little bit about that, in a bit. We won 2 additional grants totaling, one was 80,000, the other was, 25,000. We have 2 grants that we've, applied for and are pending. One of them is $231,000. And the other one is $52,000, and I have what the grants are, if someone wants to know that, I can tell you that. On the grant sheet, you will see that, on the spreadsheet, the United Way is there. We sort of missed the boat on the United Way this year. When we closed the doors, I guess I just assumed, and that's wrong, but that people would have been notified that, all these organizations that were generous enough to support us. But the United Way, no one went there until late June. I guess Sarah went over. By that time, the wheels were in motion. What happened is, I got my letter from the United Way, and Mayor Lansing is the chairman this year, and we're not on the donation list.
Yeah, I work for United Way too, and everybody had to get their applications in early in the year, and so that, you missed that window of opportunity.
Larry
But we wanna
Martin,
get you on there next year, definitely.
Oh, I know, I went to Larry Martin and I said, what do I need to do? And Wendell Maddox sent me a note, and within 8 hours he had it back, with everything, our 501c3, or that we are compliant with all federal and state laws and whatever. Much of that never lapsed, but no one would know that unless we told them, so. And likewise, I missed the budget cycle in both Lansing and the budget cycle in Basehor, but I won't miss it next year, I guarantee you that. And we formulated and our board approved the new bylaws. Bylaws we had before, it's just that they really, you don't want to have down in the weeds, all the way down in the weeds, but you gotta have something that someone came in off the street, they'd understand what was going on. We've got it now. We took a compilation off the net where they took 501c3 organizations that have been very, very successful. So we took the best parts of all of those, and that was in the document. We took what we needed out of that, and I did the first draft, and then Joyce cut it way down. We took one of the policies, compliance policy that was inside it, and that was about 5 pages, and that's a separate policy that sits over here. But we've got a good set of bylaws now. Everybody went through and we changed happy to sad, happy to glad, or whatever, but they're good, everybody's happy. We also went through 501c3 and grant assurance training. This is required by the state, that everybody in the board understands that when that money comes to you, that money has to be spent meticulously in accordance with the rules. This percentage of that money, thousands, has to go to the executive director, say, or shelter maintenance. So you really have to have somebody that's spot on as far as keeping track of where that money goes and being able to, accountant-wise, show it. We never really had a terrible problem with that, but I looked at it, and I looked at the salaries that we're paying these people, and I thought, we better be looking very, very hard, because it's not just, it's a little bit harder than it looks. And the people that come in to audit, the good news is we had an audit that went back 5 years. That was something that granted the new board. We've got half of it done, and a letter that says, and that was the bad part. Bad part meaning the tough part. We still have some more to go, but we're working on that. And
It's good to have an accountant on your board if you can get one. Yeah.
well, we voted to have an advisory board, and an advisory board needs to be professionals that are willing to,
Right.
If not go in and do all, at least look at it and check it out. I've got I call it a hit list on some people I'm gonna ask with different professions that might be able to join the board. They can sit in on any board meeting that we have. And there's certain rules for the advisory board, and then we have the volunteers, and then the general public. So we did the insurance training. We're preparing the shelter for operations. We called Leavenworth Electric. They came over, that we were having a problem with the magnetic lock on the back door. They not only fixed it, they took it apart, sent it over to Gronis and put it on there. You could hit that back gate with a bulldozer now, and it's set. And the bill came out to be nothing. They just did it because we also had them come over, because as we were moving around the shelter, taking things out of the shelter, we found that a couple of the plugs had too many things plugged in. They were a bit warm. So we wanted to have an electrical company come over and take a look at the entire wiring system, and Capital Electric put it in there. It is a solid, it's still 100% good. The only problem we have, we need to take the old wiring out. They put the new wiring and left the old wiring in there, so when the coders come around, they'll ding us for that. So the next, Leavenworth Electric is gonna come back and do that for us here, once we open the shelter. We repaired the air conditioners, probably about $1,500 worth of work and parts went into that. The Alliance was charged $300 for the parts. So the community has already put their back behind it, and that's kind of neat. The ladies, primarily the ladies, have stored for use in like a big closet, what we're going to use to start off with clothes. And then either discarded some of the clothing and things that were mildewed from being down in the basement, got rid of those, and marked the others to sell over at our garage sale site. So you can walk through the shelter now. We got rid of all the excess furniture, and we're ready to go. We'll have the sale on this Saturday. And then another one on October 6th. We've made outreach to all the major community government agencies. We came to the county here, to this body, went down to Lansing, did the same thing there, went to a base earth study period, then I went back and presented the same briefing that we presented here. And the budget had already been firmed up, but they understand what we need, and didn't say for sure, but they're amenable to support what we're doing, I'm sure. Got hooked up with a couple of organizations there, went out to a small support alliance, and we had a meeting in a food locker. It was about as big a table as the four of us here. Gave them a paper briefing and whatever, and went back, and about 4 days later, we had a check for $500 from the Alliance, from this little bitty organization there, so that's kind of neat. I haven't been able to get into Tonganoxie yet, but quit ain't my stick. I'll be scratching and jabbing here. I'll be knocking on the door pretty soon. But all I want to do is introduce myself, give them the briefing, and find out when their next study session before the budget. So at least we have a voice to show them, and the statistics to show them. Did outreach to some service organizations, my Rotary, the Kiwanis, the Leavenworth Cruisers, VFW Post 56. I plan to do the same thing in Tonganoxie and the other communities. I've got an invitation date not yet to go talk to the Lions down in Linwood. But every place I've been, people are amenable to listen to you. They understand there's a problem out there, and when I show them the statistics, they understand it and they're willing to help. I've got hooked up with 3 PEO chapters. One gave us a donation that they had designated for a Christmas gift, and then we shut the doors in November. So the lady still had the check and called me up and said, put that in the bank, so I did that. Given another PEO briefing on the 4th of October. Church outreach, I was hooked up with Mary Dwyer, and she said before you go to, before you go to Sister Vicky, this is about 6 weeks ago, she said, put some points on the board. We gotta make sure that there's viability, those are my words, I'm a sports nut. People wanna know, is it really viable? And there are a lot of donors out there in the same way, and I don't blame them. So I think we've shown that we got this thing, this Titanic is moving, it's like a frogman pushing the thing, but it is moving. We'll get her going here. But Sister Vicky is the key to do the interfaith, rather than go around church to church to church, to get that organization that already exists and be able to address that. The first fundraiser we had, the little stroll down, that netted us about, well, it was $3,000 donation, but in total, we made $5,600 on that.
That's good.
And we plan on having a fundraiser, it's gonna be 12 months of the year, and we need to get into a cycle that fits in with what else is going on in the community. Because we can't have a tournament and do a lot of planning and then find out, whoa, there's already one on the books or whatever. So it'll take some time to do that, to get meshed in with that, but there's no lack of energy, I'm sitting here kind of, it's there. We got the garage sale, as I told you, and people like what we're doing. We got husbands involved on 2 separate occasions moving the heavy stuff. We had 9 once, we had 4 last weekend, CGSC students down. We had a guy from Brazil, another one from Colombia, and I was working with I asked the guy from the Netherlands, I said, oh, are you German? He didn't, he said, no. I said, oh, yeah. But anyway, but that's, the college knows, and they just put out a flyer and asked for some help, and they got it, so. The near-term board focus is fundraising, that's gonna continue. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we're on tap to come in for the proclamation. The lady sent it to us, and we said, yes, that's right. We didn't have a hotline number to put in there, so we just said, just go with the national hotline, and leave it like that. The near-term focus, we have a job posting out for the executive director. We're looking for a college graduate, kind of sociology background, knows a little bit about a little bit of leadership. So recruiting is our near-term goal. Hiring process, the entire hiring process, we're going to hire in waves or tranches, if you will. The executive director, then with the shelter manager and the assistant at one package, and then we'll start hiring. We may hire all the advocates after that, but we need to get people to help us get the admin set up. And I know I get, not everybody has agreed on a date, but John Bradford and I said, we ought to be able to do this before Thanksgiving. He said, 1 November. I said, well, that's before Thanksgiving. I want to have that 20-some days slot there, because I was ready to have to come and see the mayor and tell him we're not going to make September. That was a hard deck for being able to spend the money, but the lady gave us $75,000. We need to then prioritize shelter upgrade projects, and I'm talking about the VFW has people that paint for a profession, and they're willing to use that labor. We've got an offer of excess paint, so it's kind of dull in there. I mean, it needs to be fresh and look a little bit more like home. So we have to prioritize those projects, figure out what they cost and whatever. And then we need to continue the outreach. By the time we get done with this minimal outreach program, it'll be time to start it over again. But at least the people know we're coming now. And the last thing I would like to do is on the second page, this, we call it a needs assessment. These are stats. They normally come out in a big thick KBI document that has all the stats. But we went in and our people in the coalition in Topeka and pulled out the domestic violence statistics for the predominant communities in the county. You can see Leavenworth, last year we had 565 incidents, we're at 614. The arrests were 214 and 208 last year.
We're just looking at this one.
And there's been you can see the increases, and that's, the slide was passed, and I said, oh, okay. I just want to be able to show this when I go places, that this is, and people say, I wonder why that's happening, and I really don't know. But when you come home from work and you turn the television on, I don't care what channel you go to, there's confrontation on every channel. He said, she said, and now we're into that, and no, this guy, and then you go to flip the other channel, and it's just the other side. So it's not you don't have the Lawrence Welk shows and stuff like, I would go, nobody, well, like we were. But I think there's a little something about it, but we're headed into the Christmas season. When money gets short, this happens, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but the problem is here. We need to make sure that our alliance does as much on the education side as we do on the taking care of the victims. Because a lot of this, because this is repetitive, this doesn't just happen. Some of these numbers here are people that are recidivists, you know. So there are ways to get out ahead of it if we can with our advocates. And that's basically it. And we've got a board that's not short on work. We've got an absolutely outstanding mentor, and not only Joyce Grover, but the whole team up there. The ones that do the IT for us or whatever. A lot of my fellow board members are, you know what, we're ready to roll. We're on our own. And I'm not ready to cut that umbilical cord yet, because I haven't been up there. I haven't been down to the government grant office. I need to go in there. I need to talk to the people that do the reimbursement reports, find out what their problems are. Is there something that we can do to help them out?
Yeah.
You know, but our reimbursement reports when they leave will be ready to go, and we'll get them down there. But we still have to have that bag of money down here, and that basically comes from our fundraising going out to that. That's it.
Question, how many people are able to live at the shelter at once?
I really don't have a number, but I think my daughter said once they had 5 or 6 families in there, and a family is let's say a mother and up to 2, sometimes 3 children. But you can, I think 5, just looking at the number of beds in there, it could be more than that. But I think my daughter, I remember, is 5 or 6 families, because it doesn't all happen at once. I know now they have 3 families in the homeless shelter, and I would rather open our shelter with at least the way it was when it closed,
Right.
and get people in there where there's comfort, whatever, you know. Putting them in, and homeless people aren't bad, but it's just different. They're there for different reasons. So
Right.
we've got to help out there. So that's why we need to have this plan. Let's say when we get to this point, it's good enough, and that was the electrical, so there's nothing there. We've got all the perishable food is gone. We're going through the food kitchen, and there's different classifications for the food. Just because you got a date on it, you know, my wife, I said, I told her I drank out of bomb craters, you know. Don't throw that away. I'll eat that yogurt, you know. It's not blue yet. I'll eat it. And if there's only a little blue spot on the bread, you cut a red. You know? She must not come from the same type of poor family that I did, you know. Anyway, but we got to go through the food smartly and not have anything that could be dangerous. But also touch base at one of the organizations, community organizations, with a fellow that from Atchison, I think he runs a food bank, and he said, look, you get caught here, we'll help you out. So
Great.
but I really want to thank the folks here. You're this board right here and the county are the ones that it gave us the light that, well, okay, if we match that, we're good to go. So that was the light, that, the shining light, and we're grateful for that. And we'll try to keep your trust. And,
We're grateful to you for all your hard work. Thank you so much
no, it's
for our
I didn't
community.
know anybody was watching me cut the grass, but I know one thing, I didn't have my gloves, so I'll never do that again. But we'll see how this sale goes, but I think we'll do okay on it, and what we don't sell, clothing wise, we will take over to the Salvation Army. We're working a memorandum of understanding with them, that we'll give them those clothes and the others that we can't use, and some of them are brand new. We'll sign a memorandum of understanding. If there's something that we can't accommodate to a family that's in there up to 5 years, we can go over there, they'll give it to us just on the chip, whatever. So, the teamwork in the city is working good.
Thank you for coming by,
Oh,
General
no,
Cherry.
it's
And
great.
it's obvious to me that, I think my fellow commissioners too, that you've really you're setting a firm foundation for success in the near, mid, and long term,
So
so.
we don't want to close the doors again.
So-
No,
No, you don't.
thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda, semi-annual review by Leavenworth County Development Corporation.
It'll be Steve Jack, the Executive Director of LCDC tonight.
Thank you, all. Thank you, Commissioners. Pleasure to be here. Let's see, we're turning on the PowerPoint, should be in your packet as well. And you'll see on our cover page, title page, Leavenworth County Development Corporation has a new logo, and we'll talk about that logo in just a little bit. Unemployment rates, state of Kansas, a year ago was 3.6%, and in July, which is the most recent numbers, it's dropped even further, now 3.4%. County unemployment rate dropped from 4.2% a year ago to 4.0%. And there are now, what's even more exciting, over 36,000 people employed in the county. That's a really solid number compared to years past. It's been edging upward every quarter or so. City of Leavenworth's unemployment rate, 4.9%. A year ago, it's dropped just 0.1%, but has increased the number of employed by 356, and the balance of county's unemployment rate dropped even further from 3.9 to 3.5%, and they've added 686. And that would include Lansing, Basehor, Tonganoxie, and everything that isn't Leavenworth. The Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Kansas Department of Labor Market Information, LMI, do release the top 15 cities' unemployment rates, but the rest we have to kind of calculate, and so I've just calculated it by balance of county. So those unemployment rates are looking good. This is a map that the Department of Human Resources has put out for published every month, and I'm not sure I've ever showed it to you, and I thought it might be a good chance to start. These are the unemployment rates, and again, we take some unemployment rates with a grain of salt. Employment numbers are probably maybe more important than unemployment rates, but companies do look at that. We all want that unemployment rate to be as low as possible. We want everybody to have a job. But if you're trying to recruit businesses, if you get down into 2.5%, 3%, like it is in western Kansas, in many counties, it's very difficult. So you can see that we're sitting at 4.0, so is Miami County. We're just right at the same level. Our two adjacent counties, Wyandotte County and Atchison County. Atchison County is at 6.0. Wyandotte County, with all the success they've had in western Wyandotte County and Cerner and all the retail, they're still at 5.5%. And so it's good for us to be around 4. Excuse me. It is not bad to have access to a labor pool from adjacent counties of 5.5 and 6.0. Excuse me. But those counties to the south and to the west, Jefferson, Douglas, and Johnson counties are quite a bit lower. And I might need some water. There you go, Steve. I made it through the day pretty well. I apologize for my cold. Let's see how long that lasts. But anyway, you get the idea. Out here in western Kansas, sometimes we're at 2.5, 2.3%, and that's and plus the population is not as high. So anyway, but I think I think there are about 30 counties though that are higher. So we're kind of in that middle area. Some Leavenworth projects specifically, and you have probably heard about at least a couple of them. Project Gear was a distribution project. I think still is a distribution project, but not for us. We were eliminated about a month after they had visited. We were excited because we got a site visit to the new park. And I think they liked the new park. The only feedback we got was there was a question when we were standing out in the park of how many traffic lights to get to I-70. And actually, I think I might have understated them because I was adding them up in my head. And then when I went back to the map and Google drove it, virtual drive down K7, I think there are 12. And so that would be a problem for a distribution center like Project Gear. You'll note, though, for a distribution project, there are not as many jobs as you might think. Some of the larger ones have hundreds of employees, and this was a pretty modest one, although we thought it might be a good project. Project Trigger was the second visit from a Kansas Department of Commerce or KCADC nationwide search. This was a small project, very high wage jobs, 80,000 plus, the machinists and engineers, 8 to 10 of them, and quite a bit of capital investment. They visited us on July 11th. I think they liked the park. I know that Alicia Hutchings from the Kansas Department of Commerce was just blown away by the park. So it looks like, I'm sure to the layperson, ground, grass and weeds, and a sidewalk and a road and some lights, but to us economic developers, it looks like a place to put buildings and jobs. So she was excited about it. The only feedback we got was demographics, and it was a little hard to read exactly what they meant by that, but sometimes the match of a company and a town isn't quite right, and it doesn't happen. So that's why you need a lot of projects in the mix. The VA CMOP, we've talked a lot about that, 240 existing jobs in Leavenworth, 220 to 240. They needed a 100,000 square foot facility and or land, and it appears since the last time that I spoke to you that they are moving to an existing building in Johnson County. Back to Project Trigger, I wanted to make sure that that I mentioned these numbers. Project Trigger started with 256 sites at 165 communities, and they narrowed it down to 11. So we got a visit, we were one of the 11. Then narrowed it down to 4, and then they narrowed it down to 2, and I don't know where they are now, but it appears that they're deciding between one of 2. So we did receive a visit, one of the 11 out of the 200 plus to start. Other projects, though, that are on the table, Project Bamboo. This is a manufacturer with a pretty large number of jobs, 150 to 250 jobs. They need 50 acres, so it would take up the bulk of the 80 available for a 100,000 square foot building, and there's some outside areas that they need for testing. We submitted the new park in July and have not heard back from, well, we have heard back from Commerce, but they haven't heard back from the prospect. If something like that were to occur, the park would veer in the direction of a manufacturing center. If, however, Project Leavitt were to come to fruition, these are two USDA Department of Ag headquarter facilities, 620 jobs total. They could put the buildings next to each other. One would be 70,000 square feet, another 90,000 square feet. I think they only requested 10 acres, so I'm gonna guess they may be building 2 or 3 story office building. We submitted the new park on August 27th. If this Project Leavitt were to come here, then the park would take on a different characteristic. I think the park is built so that we could do office. It wasn't designed primarily as an office park, but it wasn't designed primarily as a manufacturing center. It has a nice entrance to it, has a really nice sign, and so, oh, and by the way, the sign is so nice that the Port Authority has been working with Young Sign Company on specs for an upgraded sign for the Gary Carlson Park. So we'd like to make those two parks that are sitting next to each other, tie them together a little bit, and we still have 4 smaller lots for sale in Gary Carlson, and we have existing companies that we'd like to showcase and have nice signage for. And then, oh, and by the way, on the USDA, the deadline that we had was that August 27th deadline. The deadline for KCADC to turn in information was mid-September. That's been moved back to October. So the nationwide search or the search in the Midwest, and these would be facilities that would move out of Washington, D.C. into somewhere in the middle of America.
That would be really nice to not have to worry about pollution and other things that go along with manufacturing, you know?
Yeah, and there's very high-wage jobs and stuff, but everybody wants a project like this, and the city would need to step up and working with Paul, we put together an initial indication in a package that we'd be very aggressive in. And the other thing is, not only would we be aggressive, but we think this is a good location for federal government jobs. And if you look at the metro area, it's about 4%, maybe 4.5% are government jobs. 17% in Leavenworth County because of the fort, because of the VA, because of the penitentiary, and so we know how to do those government jobs here, and the workforce does. And then Project Forward. Now this was another tact as we work with lots of different companies. This is a pet food facility. In the request for information on a site that would accommodate 15 to 25 acres for this pet food facility, we noted, and they noted, that there would be potentially a mild odor. And so talking to Paul and also in Tonganoxie, George, the city manager there, we decided to pass on the project, and then we heard more information from the company that there could be some ways to mitigate that and even eliminate that. Now, it would be expensive for the company. And so, so we submitted, but with the caveat that we'd have to have a lot longer conversation, and it could be we've put ourselves in a position where it may not be cost effective for the company to consider. So just because we submit for projects, if there's a project that's just not going to be a fit, we won't submit. If we want to have a longer conversation, then we may do that, and that's what we've done on Project Forward. There are other projects around, but what's exciting to me is that we had on the previous slide, we had Project Gear come in May. We had Project Trigger come in July. We had Project Bamboo that we submitted in July. Project Levitt, which is just a slam dunk great project, come to us in August. I think we have as good a shot as any on these USDA headquarter facilities, so we're optimistic about that. I think as long as we have projects in play, we'll be okay in the long run. And if we can get visits occasionally, every few months would be great. I think some of our standards might be even higher than the report that you all commissioned from Newmark Grubb Zimmer. But as long as we have projects in play, what I would worry about, you ought to worry about it, but I, as an economic developer, would worry about is 3 or 4 months and all these projects are off the table and we're waiting and we're looking and nothing's in play. So important dates coming up. We have the SIOR, which is the Society of Industrial and Office Realtor Development Day. That's Thursday night from 4:30 to 7:30 at Union Station. So all the Jones Lang LaSalles and the Zimmers and the Kessinger Hunters and all the commercial realtors will be at Union Station in that grand ballroom. They've had it in other places in the past, and it is purely networking. All those folks will have booths, and so we'll be going up and we'll take plenty of business cards, and a lot of people we know already, and those that we don't, we'll introduce ourselves. Ashley Harden, who has been with us, she was full-time for 3 or 4 years, and then she had taken maternity leave for her first baby. She took maternity leave again, and then wanted to spend more time with her daughters, and resigned, but offered part-time assistance. And so really for the last year or so, she's been a fourth member of our staff. Lisa Hack was hired as the economic development coordinator, but Ashley has been training her. Well, Ashley, good for her. She was named the economic development director for the city of Perry, Georgia. I was born in Perry, Iowa, so there you go. I don't know. Perry, Georgia. So we're excited about her. Perry, Georgia hosts the Georgia's State Fair. So there you go.
Where is Perry, Georgia? Is it?
It is south of Macon, which is south of Atlanta. So,
Right.
Yep. And on September 24th, next Monday, we'll open up the back room for a little reception for her. And people are probably tired of me quantifying her work because we like her as a person and she gives good effort and all that. But it is nice as an economic development entity when you can quantify some savings to companies that then turn those savings into investment in their workforce or their manufacturing facilities and equipment. And so over the course of, and we have always worked with existing businesses, but we've never really quantified all those savings to the penny. And because of her background with CBiz, an accounting firm, that was her charge when we hired her. And so we believe we can show for businesses in the county about $6 million of savings in the 5 years that she's been here. So, and Lisa knows the bar is high, and, but we'll be fine. Lisa's gonna do a great job, and we appreciate Ashley's effort and commitment to the business community in Leavenworth County. Speaking of Georgia, I have on my calendar, and I don't know whether it's the 7th or 8th, but a site consultant dinner that was promised to me by the state of Kansas, an Atlanta dinner with site location consultants. Our KCADC annual meeting is November 9th at the Convention Center from 11 to 1. We'll do some networking there. Excuse me. And our VIP event, November 9th. And I believe we have, I believe it strongly enough that I put it on this PowerPoint, that will be at Grinders from 5 to 8 p.m. on November 9th. So more information about that. And then our LCDC annual meeting, for those who like to save the date in 2019, will be a week later than we have had it in years past, January 18th on a Friday at Riverfront from 11:30 to 1:30. And then one thing that's, it's not a date coming up, but a date just a few days ago, last week, we had our golf tournament. We had 25 teams, which is, I believe, what we had last year. About 6 years ago, we had 8. So it bottomed out, the economy was rough. We were still learning how to do golf tournaments, I think. It dropped from about 15, 16 to 8 teams. I was told when I got there, if we could just break even, we'd be fine. And then we figured, you know, if you ask people to sponsor you and they have an opportunity to advertise their business, so it's good for them, then we might be able to make money. And so we made 2,000 or 3,000, and then 4 or 5, and then last year we got it to 7,500, and this year we're just over 7,800 in new funds to LCDC. About 2,500 probably will be spent on the VIP, and the rest, over $5,000, will go into marketing. So it's good for us. We had 23 sponsors. Cereal Ingredients was our $1,200 sponsor, so we appreciate their premier sponsorship. And then finally, I wanted to talk about branding and marketing. This is after spending a day of talking to us and talking to city managers and other folks around the, and our board members around the county. This is the brand message that Candid Marketing out of Kansas City has put together for us, that LCDC is the catalyst for economic growth in 3 distinct communities, Leavenworth, Lansing, and Tonganoxie. Public-private partnership ensures access to critical resources to accelerate and maximize investment for companies looking to start up, relocate, or expand. And with streamlined development process, customized incentives, market-ready inventory, which is new this year, LCDC is designed to deliver. And the supporting brand message language, industry motivators, motivated by innovation, innovation inspired, innovate here, Leavenworth County first are phrases that you may see in some of our branding. We all loved when we sat down with them and said, do whatever you think we need to do after you've listened to our story. And they said, how attached are you to the LVCO ball? And I said, I stuck my lower lip out and said, I really like it. And so everybody seems to really like it, but they're outside folks who were looking with fresh set of eyes. And they said, how could you be LCDC when you're LVCO? Yeah. Well, yeah, but LVCO, the thought behind that was, and there was, a method to the madness, was we wanted to sell the county, not LCDC, so let's sell this LVCO. However, and then explain underneath that we are the Leavenworth County Development Corporation, and in fact, we are dedicated to the industry of innovation. It's a little busy. It's 4-color, which is expensive when you're printing it. And so we have gone to this new logo designed by Candid, Leavenworth County Development Corporation with the arrow.
Like it.
Yeah.
And they gave us a couple of different concepts, and clearly this was the one that the board liked the most. So we'll have new stationery, new letterhead, new business cards. And one thing that I didn't show you on that last slide, you'll see Leavenworth County Development Corporation in that manner, but you'll also see on the back of my business card that LCDC with the box and the arrow, if we just need a small little box to explain LCDC. This is the first brochure that is out. It is a brochure that folds, and it will be maybe about 6 by 4. And we're just finalizing it. Greg Cause did go out and take some drone photos of the park just a few days ago, last week, that are, the grass is green. And so I have not sent that yet, so they may swap that older drone photo with a green photo. I like how that looks, but we'll see. And then we had them, they did a nice job on the map. They did not have the word Kansas in there, and I thought we probably ought to identify the state. And then we had them add Jefferson County so that we don't look like we're on the western edge of the the metro area, so that we're in the middle of those counties and a part of the Kansas City metro area. And so there's a lot of data. What's great about Candid is that they have developed a niche with economic development and communities. So what I told our story, and then I don't have to come up with the data, and you probably can't read all the data that's there, but on population and home ownership percentages and other items that would be important to realtors and businesses, but it's here because these guys know what they're doing. We had them add the shovel-ready business parks on the right-hand side here, but you know, our advantages, minutes away from 6 interstates, labor basin of 380,000 employees, centered in the animal health corridor, and shovel-ready business parks. That's the advantages on the right-hand side, inside, and then the bullets on the back over here are some statistics about Leavenworth County. So we're just finalizing that, and we could probably go to press next week with this. We have our investor level sheet that is an upgrade from what we had in the past. We have a KC Options ad that had been a lifestyle ad in years past, and they had suggested that even though the magazine KC Options is intended to talk about workforce, the people who read it are the people hiring the workforce or deciding where the workforce is located, and that we ought to change from speaking to a millennial in Oregon who may or may not see this magazine about what a cool place this would be to live and to work, but rather the people that are in the HR department or the CEOs and presidents of the companies. And so that's the approach that they've taken in this KC Options ad. So that gives you a little flavor of some of what's already been developed by them. Phase A is branding and foundational tools. The streamlining the brand, the message, and the logo are all complete. They've done a branding guide or a style guide with fonts, the colors that we need to use. It's just not any blue. It's just not any yellow or gold. Our rules of the road. And so it's going to take us a little while to change out from our old documents. But when you see emails from us, all the email signatures ought to look exactly the same. So, our font, by the way, is Tahoma. Who knew? And in the original listing, not even the original, one that I just saw from a couple weeks ago, they want to roll out a new website by October 1, and I've seen the bare bones of it, but haven't seen how it's going to work, but they're working on it. They're developing a new customer relations management system, CRM, that will accommodate all our contacts, all our prospects, all our site consultants, and when we send out e-blast, it won't be on constant contact, it will be from the CRM. And then they'll do the annual report around the 1st of January. So they're just starting, and they've already produced quite a lot of stuff for us. Phase B is driving interest in the business parks. What we noticed is, because we had some discussion about, do we like the bridge or do we don't like the bridge? I like the bridge. Some of the board members thought, well, couldn't we do something different? Well, what would that be? How many photographs do we have in our archives? Not very many. And so we're hiring a professional photographer who is touring Thursday of this week, the county, and we're going to take as many photos inside and outside of businesses as we can. So we'll have an archive for the website, for any other print ads, any emails. Drone videos are planned, marketing materials, trade advertising, and then beginning marketing the park to brokers and site selectors. We also wanted to do more email campaigns, broker windshield tours, local business highlights, video tour of existing businesses, and retail and housing industry, advertising and sponsorships or other opportunities. We tried to prioritize these from phase A. We needed to do that first, then second. And those first two phases will cost us $148,000. We don't have that budgeted in our annual marketing budget, but we do have reserves, and so we're dipping into those reserves to that level of $148,000, which will take about half of those reserves. And then after the first of the year, we'll take a look back at phases A and B and see is everybody happy with it. We think we're going to make progress on that, and then talk to you all and talk to the board, but talk to the communities about how we might fund these phases C and D. So
You might want to coordinate with our CVB and our PR department as well.
yes, and I did
Especially
take.
for photos and.
Yeah,
videos and
I
things
took a
like
look at where we were in tonight's, I'd like to take a look at your packet. And I was pretty proud of my, our new, graphics and stuff until I looked at the CVB stuff, and that looks awfully good. So anyway, yeah, very professional and very sharp, and so there may be some things that we can share. And we've reached out to the fort, about a year ago, I reached out to the fort to get some of these photographs, and so we do have a small group to start with, but we need a lot more photos. So, and if, for example, the USDA does come in a month or two or three and wants a visit, and we want to do a PowerPoint or a brochure or a video, then we ought to have this stuff ready. Maybe not the video ready, but the stuff for the video ready, so that within a few days we can put something together. So that's our thought.
Does LCDC have a social media presence on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram?
We are on Facebook, and we have, there's a Trails Facebook page, it's Port Authority, LCDC, and then there's the LCDC, and then we have a Living in Leavenworth County Facebook page. So we've got really 3 Facebook pages, but we have not done, when Cecilia was here, we did some Twitter, and
Well, if you
I
talk about
haven't,
photos,
but-
Instagram may be something you want to take a look
Yeah.
at going forward.
Uh-huh.
I'm no expert, Melissa is, but
Yeah.
I just thought I'd bring that up.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yep.
Question, does the city have a specific preference on what type of businesses we want to attract to the new business park?
Well, and you'd have to ask the city. But I would say in our discussions, we understand and are sensitive to the fact that homes are being built just to the west of there. The design of the park was you start over on the east side and then you dogleg to the west so that the lots available on the west side of 14th Street are not as deep. What that means is that flex space, smaller buildings could be built there, and the larger buildings could be built just adjacent to, behind our Gary Carlson Business Park and cereal ingredients facility. So we know that heavy industry is probably out. Office would be good if that's the direction that we go, but light manufacturing is sort of the sweet spot.
I think these have been the discussions we've had since we first started the park, is where do we go? And I think Steve's first 6 examples there are perfect examples, where we're keeping all of our options open with the caveats that Steve mentioned. Project Leavitt, the USDA, is completely different than the pet food manufacturing. And whichever goes first, as I've indicated, I think will set the tone for the park. And so I don't think, and I appreciate what Steve said, just because you submit for a project is not tying you to anything. It allows you to learn more. So it may not be a good fit for us. Nothing would happen without full commission discussion and public discussion. But I think you need to keep your options open. I think that's what Newmark Grubb Zimmer said. Don't limit yourself. Continue to explore all the options that are viable.
And one thing, these companies, when they do come, and we've had 2 that have come with site location consultants. So it didn't work out for the company, but we exposed the site locator
Right.
to the park.
Yeah.
And if you just if I call a site locator in Chicago and say, could you come and look at our park? Because you can't really understand it until you see it. Then they're gonna want a plane ticket. It's gonna cost me several $1,000s to get one person to come. This way, we've already gotten 2 companies unsuccessfully, but 2 site location consultants that may be remembering us. Well, it didn't work out for gear, but I've got another project for another company, so.
That's good. Okay.
And in terms of who controlling the traffic lights on K773, that's the state, is that KDOT in terms of the number of?
It is, and we're hopeful that the resurrected K7 Corridor Management Group, and we really need Leavenworth County, I'll just say it, to get on board with that. Wyandotte County has taken one big step at Parallel. They've applied for some federal funding in, I think, 2021, some federal funding to do some work on frontage roads
Good.
that will help traffic inflow. I think if we took as proactive approaches they have on some intersections, we could probably get some grant funding for that.
We would have to work with the county.
Yeah, and I'll give the county, they have been engaged in the very first meeting of the new K7 Corridor Management Group.
And while it may be advantageous to have, knock a few more minutes off this for the companies that we're trying to attract, doesn't mean that under existing conditions that a Great Western can't thrive, that a cereal ingredients can't thrive, that a Heatron can't thrive,
Right.
that Zephyr. We have examples of companies that are here now that are doing, that
Very
it hasn't bothered them,
Right.
so,
Yep, thanks for the
Great.
update.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Hope you feel better.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda, semi-annual report by Leavenworth Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Our CVB manager, Christy Lee, will give her report.
Good evening,
Hello,
Mayor
Christie.
Patron, Commissioners. our new website will load PDFs faster.
Yeah. That would be good. I've had that problem at home quite a bit. That's fine.
That's fine.
That'll work. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, let's go down this way.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay.
This is the second report for the year and that, so, the March report will kind of be our annual report where I'll, give the whole year statistics of 18 and that, so this is kind of just, what we've been doing so far this year. I wanted to kind of give you an industry-wide update, and then a Kansas update, and then some Leavenworth statistics too, and see if you had any questions or anything along the way. Please let me know. But travel industry as a whole this year so far has just been really good in that, as you can see, the travel trends, which is done by the U.S. Travel Association, and that they do tons of statistics and reports throughout the year and that we can download and get information from and that. But according to their index, it showed that both businesses and leisure segments of the domestic travel expanded every month during the first half of the year for the first time in history. So travel internationally and business is doing really well for 2018, and they see that continuing into the near future anyway. So that part of it is looking good. And just some more statistics, I kind of geek out when I see some of these statistics and that. I know it gets a little boring or whatever, but I do like to, show you some of them or whatever, that travel is really big business as far as that goes. It's, 1 billion 36, I don't even know how to say that, 1 trillion $36 billion in the US. So it supported 8.8 million jobs directly, generated 259 billion in payroll income, and 165 billion in tax revenues for your federal, state, and local governments. Statistically, the food services and lodging are the top two spending categories by your domestic and international travelers. Leisure travel accounted for 80% of all U.S. domestic travel, and just wanted to note that the top international markets to the U.S. are Canada, Mexico, and the U.K. So those are the top international countries coming to the United States. Just of note, too, occupancy rates across the country are at 73.6%. Your average daily rate is at $133.44, and your RevPAR is at 98.17. So I've mentioned ours later on in the report, so you'll kind of be able to compare them to ours after a little bit. But as far as Kansas goes, project time off is actually driven nationally too, but I just wanted to highlight what Kansas is right now. Project time off is basically nationwide in that. So, but Kansas is alone. They figure that there's 6,568,000 unused vacation days in that. It's kind of becoming a national epidemic, so to speak, that people just aren't using their vacation days. They're rolling them over, they're stocking them, whatever. So basically 58% of the employed people in Kansas have unused vacation days, which possibly could amount to an untapped economic benefit of $547 million. So a lot of money on the table there that, isn't being used annually, so.
Christie, can you advance it to the next?
Oh, I sure can, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, there we go. And, let's see, this is, in Kansas, hopefully they'll be able to, do more reports, but they do cost a lot of money in that, so Kansas does theirs every 3 years. So I know some of this information I've used before in that and showing you, but, it is, visitors it's still 2016 numbers for some of it, but they, supported nearly 10.8 billion businesses, sales in Kansas, and almost 95,000 jobs, which amounts to 1% of all the jobs in Kansas are tourism related or have an impact on tourism. The state Office of Tourism also has upgrading their website, so it must be the year to do that. Their platform is Simple View, which we have the back end to it, and we go in all the time and update it as well. So some of these some of the stuff that they've added to their website helps us on our end as far as keeping up to date with everything that they've got going on in that. But a really great website. If you get a chance, go on, take a look at it. It is a nice website, but Simple View, like Steve was mentioning, a couple of those different places. Simple View is mainly geared towards convention and visitors bureaus across the countries, or DMOs, destination marketing organizations, use Simple View, and it's a great platform for that specific business, but it is pretty expensive in that. So I'm looking forward to working with Unicode when we do ours, but hopefully and incorporate some of the tourism end of it. I think they've worked with a couple different tourism aspects in that, so I think we'll still have a really good product when we roll ours out. I did copy the Kansas District 2 as far as economic engine for Kansas and that, so you can see that just District 2 in Kansas has 14,690 jobs basically that are tourism related. So payroll just for those jobs are 2.78 million. So ranks 5th in employment for the state. So it's pretty big industries, national, state, and locally. So some of the updates in Leavenworth here. A few months ago, worked with Jones Hewitt Partners. They are the state Office of Tourism's marketing company that they've hired to do their marketing for them and do their publishing. So they came out here and they shot a video for the state Office of Tourism, but it was on Fort. They were it's across the state that they're highlighting the different forts in the state and that. So they went out there, shot, it was 6 hours or so that they shot for that video. But then they also went to the Richard Allen Cultural Center and shot some video there as well. So I think once we see that, it's going to be a nice video in that, and we'll be able to use it and hook onto it on all of our social media as well. So haven't seen it yet, but I'm thinking they're probably going to roll it out at the tourism conference, which is in October. We had our National Travel and Tourism, which is in May every year. We did the then and now photos of the properties in that, because that was the theme for the National Travel and Tourism, and it actually was a really good campaign for us. We did really well. We had a lot of impressions, a lot of shares. I think it was fun for people to see the before and after pictures of what some of the properties used to look like to what they look like now. So it was a good campaign for us. January for July, we're estimating that we've already had about 58,000 visitors to Leavenworth and again, I'm basing that number by the numbers of the people that have signed in at the carousel. So our visitor guidebooks, we've already distributed about 12,000 of those, and 195 are direct requests from people actually calling in or emailing us or something like that and saying, can you send us a visitor's guidebook? And so that's a pretty good number. We keep track of that regularly. So some of the things that we've done in-house, we've completed a meeting planner's guidebook, I'm currently working on a Melissa Etheridge self-driving tour, and hopefully we'll have that put together. They are Melissa Etheridge's campaign person that works with her a lot on some of her things is going to proof it, and then they'll send it back, and hopefully we'll be able to go to print with that. So we're working on our 2019 visitors guidebook. I met with Sandy over at the Leavenworth Times and then her new graphics designer person, Matt, and really looking forward to it this year. We were picking out a couple of different layouts and that we like in that, so I think it's going to be a nice book next year as well. So like I said, we're working on, we met once for the design on the new website and that, so I'm kind of excited about seeing where we're going to go with that, but I think it's going to be great. And along with what Steve was saying, we've actually scheduled 2 different photo shoots for Leavenworth with the tour. He's a photographer that's going to be coming out from Kansas City, Kansas. he works a lot with their CVB, with Visit KCMO, Lenexa. He's done a lot of tourism shoots and that, so that's kind of where I thought that he would do us a pretty good job. He's coming out next Tuesday, actually. And then he'll be out in October too, to maybe get some fall shots in that. But we're really needing some new photos, some updated photos on that, and geared a little bit more towards tourism aspects and that. So hopefully we'll get some good shots out of that. And we may even set up a couple of local ones with some other local models. So anyway, because we're always needing new photos. We've had a couple of really good fam tours this year, and we've already scheduled 2 tours from that, so that's pretty exciting. We've also hosted, as you know, our sister city of Wagga Wagga was here from August 29th through September 5th, and I think overall we hosted them, and they were very happy with the outcome, and we have received a thank you letter or note from them that they thought our hospitality was wonderful in that, so I think it turned out well. Just wanted to give you an update on our tourism grants. We had our August 1st round, and the committee met and decided on the $10,000 for this round. The First City Film Festival received $1,500. The Leavenworth Main Street received $3,250. The Richard Allen Cultural Center received $2,500. And then the Leavenworth County Historical Society received $2,750. If you want to know what their projects are, I would be happy to go over those with you and that. I just, time, space, or whatever, I didn't include what all that they were going to be using those funds for.
Did you have more applications?
No, those 4 were our
That was it?
only,
Okay.
our only applications. And it was hard enough because the applications totaled $20,000 and we
Right.
only had $10,000 to give away, so.
I wonder if we might at some point look at increasing that, if we need to. I mean, I know some of them are using for advertising, those
And-
costs are pretty expensive.
They are.
Yeah.
Advertising is extremely expensive, no matter what kind of marketing you do.
we
So
can visit
I
that
had
again.
mentioned that, I think that'd be something to definitely consider. We're excited again. We've updated the historic wayside markers. That was on my last report, but we're completely done now, and I think they turned out great. So we had a really nice social media hits on that. When we posted it, we had over 6,600 likes and 50 shares just on this. So other people are interested in it
I
too.
have to go
So
look at them.
yeah, it
Mine
was-
had bullet holes in it, so.
Yeah.
Prison, yeah. To see
Yeah.
how they did, how they looked.
How many wayside markers do we have?
There's 20.
20? Wow.
20.
And this was a
Number-
project in conjunction with the Frontier Army
Yes,
Museum?
yes, we worked with them very closely. We worked with the Frontier Army Museum, we worked with their Public Affairs Office, George Marchek on Fort and that, and his wife did the recordings for us. I mean, it was a great project to work, we worked really close
And the
with them on it.
technology was upgraded, correct?
Yes, technology was upgraded. They used to have the push button where you would listen to a recording there, but they kept failing.
Yeah.
And that, and so it wasn't,
Right.
it wasn't a good system. So we did upgrade it, and that's where the Frontier Army Museum came in, because they allowed us to use their phone-in system and then their audio. So we have storage on their system as far as our information and that. So yeah, it was really nice. It
Very good.
was a great project to work with them on. Some of our summer marketing campaigns, we do still have the coffee one going and the ones with their KCRDA that were listed on our last one and that. However, we did do a billboard, we did 5 different billboards. I only showed 3 on there, but there are 2 other ones that we ran May through August. And then I did along I-29 southbound, and then I-70 east and westbound and that. But that was just kind of a sample of what they looked like. And then on the right there, you'll see 2 of our banner ads that we're running with the Leavenworth Times. So far, it's been pretty good impressions that we're getting with those 2. So hopefully we can, the meeting in Leavenworth one is hopefully we'll get some leads off of that as far as somebody wanting to hold their meetings here. So we'll
Is there any way to
keep that.
check, because I think the billboards like particularly along I-70 are really effective, but there's no real way to measure how that,
Other impressions, just traffic counts. And that's how they do it, as far
Okay.
as traffic counts
Traffic counts.
and impressions, not, I mean, and even that's kind of a little subjective, because
right.
not every car going by would read that, but, I mean, that's what we go by as far as the impressions and traffic counts, how many,
That's
yeah. Mm-hmm.
a key location, that one on I-70.
It is,
Wow,
it's a
look
great
at that.
location, and
Yeah.
they're really nice billboards, and it's hard when they are changing the digital ones, which are really nice, because they do kind of draw your eye to them, because they're new,
Yeah.
so I think they do get more impressions than just your static billboards.
Okay.
But anyway, but that's how you do, you count the impressions or the traffic counts.
Okay.
Information on our occupancy, ADR, and this is where I said you can kind of compare it to the national level in that. Our occupancy and this was numbers just January through July. I had ordered a Smith Travel Research report, and it shows that our occupancy rate for 2018 for those months is 61.2%. And our average daily rate is $112.92, with June being the most expensive at $116. And then our revenue, January through July, was $5 million, which equated to 44,278 room nights. However, when you do, with the transient guest tax that actually comes in, you can kind of extrapolate that. We collected 2.85 million. So, using your formulas and that, you can average that almost 57% of the room nights sold were transient guest tax exempt. And that, which is a lot of military, and it does figure in with what's going on with the Home 2 Suites and with the Hampton Inn getting that contract with the military and that, so that will show the uptick there in the percentages.
Your footnote says figures based on, it lists the hotels in Leavenworth, but there's also listed Holiday Inn Express.
In Lansing.
Do we count that?
Well, no,
Okay.
what we do, we need 4 hotels minimum.
Oh, okay.
That will report to this,
okay.
Smith Travel Research before they will
Oh, I
give
see.
you any
got it.
information back.
Sure.
So I always have to supplement with another hotel
I see.
until we get our 4th one up and running.
I
And
got it.
even then, we're gonna want at least
Sure.
6 months to, some year under that belt
Right.
before we really use those
Okay.
numbers and that. So, yep, you need a minimum of 4.
Okay.
So supplemented
Sure.
with that one. Next, our tours that we've had just since June. On the year end or the annual report, I'll total them all and kind of give you some statistics as far as how many tours we had for the year and that. But we've been doing pretty well. We just hosted that WJAG radio tour that came down from Iowa or Nebraska, and they were headed down to Waco to the Magnolia Farms, the Gaines people,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
the
Chip and
Chip and
Joanne.
Joanne Gaines, yes, so they had a whole trip, and they stopped here, which was great, because they came here, they did a couple things, they did the Alive After 5, they stayed overnight, and they left in the morning, so, I mean, we had 27 room nights off of that, so it was a great tour. And then some of the other ones, some of the other group tours that we've been working with and that, so, so far seem to be doing okay with that, and then a couple of meetings that we've done. So far, sports is a little low. I mean, I went to the last sports Kansas meeting that was down in Fort Scott and caught a couple things. I'm glad I went because they were starting to run an ad, and they had left us off. So was able to catch that and say, hey, you need to put Leavenworth back on there. And so it's one of the reasons you try to attend as many of those as you want. But hopefully that'll pick up a little bit in the future. I know, did you mention, we met with a person that's doing some scouting right now on possible building, some sports stuff here in the area and that, so don't know, they're just preliminary on that, but,
sporting activities.
Some indoor facilities.
Indoor facilities, yeah, so.
Okay.
We'll see where that goes. Some of our trade shows and conferences that I've already attended: Pear Day in April, Missouri Bank Travel, Midwest Bloggers Conference, which is really, that's where I kind of met the Iowa Gallivant that came down at the end of July, and he just did a fantastic job as far as blogging and posting them, and we got a lot of play off of just hosting him for one night, so it was really good. Tour Kansas Showcase, and then Pear Day again on August 18th. And then I just got back from the State Fair just the other night, so I went down there on Friday and that, so, it was some traffic in that, but I think in the future, we've done this show every other year in that, but with our, we used to have the Sampler Festival, and that used to be our huge leisure opportunity to get the information out there, and now that they're not doing Sampler Festival, I think we're probably gonna have to try and look at some other leisure shows and do some more of that, but, just to kind of get, that was a really good show for us and that, so we were always able to hand out at least almost 1,000 visitor guidebooks at that show, but we'll see how that, I'll have to look and see if any of them make sense for us. Some other ones, the TIAC Tourism Conference is coming up in October, Destination Marketing International Conference is coming up in November, and then the KSAE Meeting Showcase is gonna be in Topeka, December 4th and 5th, so we'll be in attendance at those.
What's the acronym TIAK stand for? What is that?
Oh, Tourism Industry Association of Kansas.
Oh, okay.
It's the annual
Annual
tour,
conference.
annual tourism conference for the state.
They move it around?
They do move it around.
Okay.
Yep. They've got it plugged in now for the next 2 years. Next year we'll be down at the Star Casino that's just on the outskirts of Wichita
Okay.
down there.
Yeah.
And then after that it'll be in Liberal, and this year they will announce where it's gonna be for the next year after that, so.
Great report.
So, any questions or?
I think you covered everything quite well.
Great.
Keep up the good work.
Never too much information.
Is there anything you need from the commission?
No.
Get everything from the city manager.
I do.
right? Yeah. Thank God for the city manager, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen.
Any other discussions among the commission?
I don't have anything tonight.
To me.
Nothing tonight. No, sir.
I'm good.
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I feel like a judge.
Okay, good.